Hello there, this is a listening project specifically highlighting the women's voice within the game, brought to you by the Football Supporters Association and Offside Media Productions. In this 6-part series, leaders of football fan groups are joining me, Lynsey Hooper, to chat about the big issues for fans right now. Today, we're talking about safety online. With me, and joining me to talk about this, is Rachel Martin, co-chair of Spurs Supporters Trust, Simon Duke, secretary of the Fulham Supporters Trust, and Tracy Brown, chair of Chelsea Pride. Tracy, we're going to start with you on this one. I know that you have a lot of experience of facing online abuse, not only yourself, but you'll have heard about it within your groups. If you wouldn't mind, could you perhaps start by sharing some of those experiences with us?
I think I can talk about some of my own experiences when I started Chelsea Pride just over 5.5 years ago. I think when I first started the group, I was maybe slightly naive that everyone would be very supportive of an LGBTQ plus supporters group for a team. That backfired quickly. I, in the very beginning, got a lot of personal abuse for actually wanting to have a group like that for a football team. I had death threats, I had rape threats, of which on Twitter I then turned my account to private for over 2.5 years because I didn't want anyone to actually be able to attack me personally. Because people didn't like it, that the fact that, there was a woman who absolutely loved her club. I'd been going to the club since I was a small child, who actually just wanted to see something good come out of a game. And what I was trying to do was really wrong, wasn't fitting with the straight white man who was sitting in the stands, who didn't believe that women should have a voice, let alone a gay woman. And I suffered massively with online abuse personally myself. So for me, protection was to actually turn off my personal account to be in public so I could actually protect myself. And then I deeply focused then from that point on in realising that the problem wasn't just going to be me being attacked, it was anyone who obviously stood up who wanted change. And actually that then drove me with what we have done with Chelsea Pride and supporting other groups in actually really heavily promoting that it isn't just a white, straight man who actually goes to football anymore. It's actually many different communities and we all have a right to be there. So actually what it did in the end was not drive me away from football, but actually made my skin just a little bit thicker and actually pushed me into the journey I've had since in really continuing to push for equality within the game.
I mean, that's really painful to hear, Tracy. I find that it's really moving. Thank you for sharing it. And it does resonate for me because I've only recently taken over as co-chair of Tottenham Supporters Trust, and I'm recently retired, so I knew I'd got time. I used to be a head teacher. I thought I've got appropriate skills. I've worked, on a board before, but the only thing that really made me think, do I want to do this? Am I going to do this? Is the risk of online abuse and whether I'm thick-skinned enough. And I did think, well, yes, okay, I will, but I'll make my account private. And then I thought, come on, let's give it a try. And it isn't private. And we'll see how it goes. But I do wonder whether because I'm older, I might be okay. But I do think, I find that the crowd on Twitter and social media is very different from the crowd in a stadium. And whether it's actually physically different people or whether it's just that if you're at a keyboard and you're anonymous to a degree, you can say whatever you want. Whereas when you are face to face with people, you generally tend to be polite if they're polite to you. But so I find there are loads and loads of fantastic people on Twitter that I love talking to. I've talked to them for years, but I know lots and lots of women who have had horrible experiences, pile-ons, about them personally, about the way they look, about their views, that you just think that I'm not sure that would happen to a man. I think I think you're much, much more vulnerable.
My account, by the way, isn't private now. It's actually wide open because, as I say, that thick skin has pushed me on. And actually having a bigger support base now in what we do has pushed me on. And yes, it's very easy for a keyboard warrior to sit there behind a screen. I definitely don't think you'd have those same people say it to your face as they would. I definitely don't think I'd have someone walk up to me at a game and threaten my life over something. But it's very easy for someone to do that online. But this is where this conversation is about, the dangers of actually online abuse.
Online, of course, Tracy, they can hide behind anonymity because they will have a strange handle and you could possibly never get to find out who they are. I mean, we've had experience of it, and it is upsetting to hear what you both related to in terms of women in football. But, you know, we've seen it go wider than that to people who have physical challenges. And it's a few who make derogatory comments that set the tone against a lot of positive comments you get. And we actually published some online guidance, and it really starts with saying to yourself, before I put anything online, I better make sure it's something that I'm happy for the wider world to read. After that, you know, if you're the recipient of some negative feedback, you know, do you really need to reply and get into a Twitter spat, for want of a better word? Just let it drop. It's a very difficult one because, you know, online abuse comes in all different shapes and guises. And it's often difficult to track down the perpetrators, and even harder, if you can, to get the social media companies to do anything about it.
So we had something this weekend where there was a really vile, absolutely vile tweet made about, anti-Semitic tweet. And it was reported by a lot of people. And then Twitter came back with their findings, which was that, yes, it was invoking violence against a group. It was hateful. And therefore, their account would be suspended. And they would need to take that tweet down before they were allowed access back to their Twitter account. So that'll teach them.
I think the thing that's especially...
It's no deterrent, is it?
No, I don't think that the repercussions for doing things like this perhaps have been strong enough. We have seen some examples, but not enough. The thing that feels especially toxic, and I'm going to use a phrase that I hope you're all familiar with, is the pile-on. And this is invoked, it's encouraged, often by sometimes high-profile broadcasters, figures. And I've seen that myself. I mean, in recent times, I think we all saw what happened with Karen Carney when she had a pile-on from Leeds United fans. We've also seen what happened after England women won the Euro. Bethany England mentioned about a comment that Graham Souness made about all men, or, you know, men at it again, and back to the men's game. Perhaps not the choice of words that should have been used off the back of that. But what then happens is we see a pile-on effect where lots and lots of people then direct abuse just at one person. So, Tracy, is this something at Chelsea that you've started working towards solutions to try and prevent? It's obviously awful if you get one-on-one, but I imagine if you're getting hundreds of people, that is a whole other mental health factor for some people.
And this really does affect people on a really big mental health basis. And I think that's one of the big knock-on effects to the very negative side of actual social media. It is that what the damage it does to you mentally. I think we are very aware that if someone starts something, I say, on one of our posts that we may put out, I'm not going to argue with anyone anymore. I'm not going to start on a one-to-one argument with you. And I'd encourage everyone not to do exactly the same, because they're actually wanting airtime. They want to provoke. And actually, if you don't engage with those people who are actually looking to do that, it will actually stop that from really escalating. So actually, it's just being very aware of whatever you put out, of being aware of what people may bounce back with. I think when it comes to women, definitely women who do commentary now, we've got a lot more amazing women within the game now, and not just within the women's game, but who do commentary on the men's game. And of course, they're very easy targets. So one thing wrong, if say, unfortunately, Graham Souness said it, maybe nothing would be said. If Carney sat there and says something that men don't quite like, she is going to be pulled up on that, and it will just explode. And it is very different from men to women. Men across commentary can get away with quite a lot, where women can't get away with anything because they will be pulled up straight away. That culture needs to change. We've got some fantastic women now, not just within football, but within sport in general. And a lot more respect needs to go to those women who know very much that they could be doing a game and look at their personal accounts after the game, and they could have a torrent of abuse. And it isn't just abuse that's publicly, it's abuse that's privately sent to individuals as well. So at the end of the day, I think if your person, say if we get something, if it's that bad and we think it's actually someone directly who goes to Stamford Bridge, so it's someone we know, isn't just a supporter from abroad, but is someone who actually comes to the game as a member or a season ticket holder, we will take that to the club. We will have the club investigate. So although we may have been targeted, it's something that a Chelsea fan, say, may have done or said against us. We will go directly to our club and say, this isn't on, you need to look at this. So actually, we're not going to let it go. And I will gladly report anyone who I think has been racially abusive, homophobic, anti-Semitic. There's no excuse. Sexism, misogyny is a huge issue within football and sport in general, and we need to educate to shut that down.
I do agree, and I think women commentators and pundits are piled on for getting something wrong. That's the perception. Whereas, actually pundits like Alex Scott, that she never gets anything wrong. She's so well researched, partly because she knows what would happen. I think there is generally, when any match is on and you look at what's trending, it'll be Steve McManaman, Jamie Redknapp. And I've done it, I have to admit, I've criticised myself, them as well. But it doesn't generally tend to be a venomous pile-on. It's just, whereas for women, there's a slightly different nature. And there is a thing about what are they doing here anyway, so I think there's very different standards for men and women pundits.
The thing with social media is, it's a tremendous tool if used properly, but it's also a tool that gives people the ability to respond very, very quickly, often without thinking, and then it can escalate. Somebody reads something and instead of taking a step back and thinking about it for an hour before replying, they're there and they reply, and it can be quite inflammatory, and then it all just gains pace because the next person reads it and says something straight away, and it just snowballs.
Well, how about, let's move away from individuals. How about fan accounts? Because something that I've noticed over recent years is that in order to try and get a joke or a one-upmanship over other rival fans sometimes, and this actually did happen with the Karen Carney case as well, where the Leeds United account actually caused that pile-on. How do we hold our own accounts to more rules, to discipline? Because it isn't all about clickbait. It's not about likes and loves and being able to just have more shares if people are being dragged into unwanted online abuse. So how are we holding our own clubs to account more?
I think actually the people who run the media accounts, so our comms teams, need to be well educated and versed actually in inequality across a game. So actually, I think making sure the people who run all the comms accounts for, say, all the Premier League teams are aware that there is a knock-on effect. Definitely, so what I may put out and what Rachel may put out online will get a couple of thousand people maybe like something. So Chelsea Football Club, Spurs, Fulham put something out. Thousands among thousands are going to see it, like it, retweet it, jump on it. They have to be accountable for what they put out. They have to think very carefully about what they put out. Again, there's a very fine line between banter and actually something that's going to actually cause a problem and offend people. What I have noticed definitely from our comms team when they put out, say, something around Rainbow Laces campaign, is if they put anything out where they are supporting a minority group, say, for instance, if it's Rainbow Laces, it'll be the LGBTQ plus community, they turn off their comments so that people can't jump on them. But actually there's a knock-on effect now, because people then will retweet the tweet and actually make their own comments on there. So what you're doing is removing one problem from one area, and that's the responses underneath the club's tweets, and people are retweeting it with the same abuse they would have originally put in. And at that point, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, that whole mantra, they need to be held accountable for, if people report it, to actually start removing the said abuse. That is a whole problem in itself, that many clubs, many individuals, we've all pushed for these organisations to actually manage abuse better, and we are far, far, far off where these companies need to be. It surely cannot be that difficult if someone is putting really bad emojis up to a comment, picking on someone because of their race, their colour, their gender, that actually these social media companies and platforms don't do more to protect the good people who actually enjoy being on the internet. And I agree, there's many good positives about being online and being on these platforms. Unfortunately, they get overshadowed by the negative.
It's the negative everybody latches onto. Positive comments are a given, negative comments people latch onto and inflame the situation even more. Would you like a positive on social media?
I would, Simon. Can I say one thing before you do, just to round off what you've just said, Tracy, which is, aren't the people in charge of these club accounts often, and I don't want to generalise too much because it will vary club to club, but often they're sometimes the youngest people in, the least experienced, and probably on the least wages. Yet they have the biggest say and are speaking to millions of people. And I'm just putting that out there sometimes. Do you not think, Rachel? You're saying no?
No, not at all. I think we've got to, I can't imagine that any of the clubs that we're representing here have got youth opportunities. I'm showing my age. People running the social media. It's a hugely important job. I've met several of the people doing the media and the comms for the club. They're extremely professional. They've had loads of training, previous experience, and I think that.
Are they in the Premier League though, Rachel? Is that the same throughout the pyramid? Because there are clubs that have got social media, whether you're in the fourth tier or the first tier.
Okay, I can only speak for Tottenham. Yes, you could well be right. I don't know. But
I think it's something that could be looked into. I think it's something that you could actually do a report on. It would be lovely for clubs to put in that information, because I've done a lot of work with our comms team. I feel like I know our comms team quite well, and we've worked closely with them over the years. So I would feel very secure in my comms team. But yes, we don't know who it is running the comms teams at the lowest levels within football, and you are going to employ anyone you can, and you can't afford big wages in those clubs. So you're going to get in someone that you just can, who's got some slight experience, who's maybe really good at tweeting. And yeah, I think it's something where money actually will have a factor to play. Where you are within the football pyramid will have something to play on it. And maybe it's something that, the authorities and people like the FA could actually look in a way of safeguarding fans online, is actually look to every club within the football pyramid and say, who do you have running your comms team? How well are they trained, educated across issues that you get across social media, so that all clubs are aligned in the way they work, so that when it comes to the negative across the game, none of the clubs are actually provoking that or making that worse.
I'm guessing, Lynsey, that the further you go down the pyramid, and I don't know, perhaps I should, that the more likely it is that whoever does the communications, it's either an add-on to another job or they're a volunteer.
I know for a fact. Yeah, I know for a fact that a work experience got in trouble because they were in charge of a handle for an account once.
Yes.
Now it wasn't at a Premier League club, because of course there is a wage structure and they do have the finances to be able to do that. But if they play a Premier League club in a cup competition, for instance, and decide to try and provoke there, nobody knows that person sat behind that account isn't an employee of the club. Do you see what I mean? So I don't think we have held that to a high enough account yet.
I think the BBC had a similar issue, did they not, with somebody who was being trained on their ticker?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're all having a
What the story
sly
was now.
smile about that, Simon.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
brings us on to your positives
What was
to
it?
finish
I
on,
can't
because we haven't got
was-
too much longer left.
On to my positive. Lynsey, when we did the podcast on safety, I mentioned that some women have formed a women's supporters group to overcome some of the issues of attending games. They have taken to social media, as you would expect, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. They were braced to receive some negative feedback when they launched themselves. As of yesterday, I understand there has been very little, if any, negative feedback, and that most of the feedback they've had from men has been very positive and supportive. So if you're looking for some good news in social media, so far that's it. I dare say something will happen one day that might change that, but so far so good. So maybe that's indication that attitudes are changing.
Yeah, shall we end there on thoughts that give us, I don't know, a little bit of encouragement for the future? Rachel?
I think my encouragement for the future is from Tracy, that she's got her account open and it's working now, and she's able to, by having done all the sterling work that you're doing, people are hopefully showing you some respect. And you're able to keep it open. And I think I just think that working together is so important. And so across the football world, also within the other groups, we have Spurs Ability, Proud Lily Whites, Reach, which is for inclusion and people of different ethnicities. So we have lots of different groups. And by all working together, it's so much more powerful that you can get change.
And actually, it's working across the groups, actually, this helps me in everything that I've done pushing forward. I've worked closely with Chris from Proud Lily Whites, and we work closely together with the Let's Say No to the chant. We won't mention the name, the actual chant. But we work very closely on that in getting the CPS to actually change their stance to turn it to a hate crime. Actually, there's a power in all working together across every team. So, we play each other 90 minutes twice a season, maybe in a cup game, but at the end of the day, we're all football fans. We want to see football go in the right direction. So actually working together is really, really important.
Think about things like getting the away price cap for ticket prices. No single club could have done that on their own. You have to work together. And it's the same with all of the issues we're talking about.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts once again with us. We're going to have to bring this discussion to a close now. Rachel, Simon and Tracy, I do wish you well in all of your endeavours at your clubs to try and bring about change. If you've been listening in at home and want to share your views, do comment below or get in touch on social media at We Are the FSA. Keep a lookout for the other Listening Project episodes too, covering a wide range of topics, including safety at matches and why more women don't call in on football phone-in shows, for instance. There's one released every week for 6 weeks. Thank you very much for listening and see you soon.